So the concept for today's video is better coffee through chemistry, better coffee through science. And I just wanted to introduce you to some of the equipment that we're going to use today and some of the concepts that we're going to employ. We're going to collect some data and we're going to see about making that perfect cup of coffee. So that's the concept, is making that perfect cup of coffee. And that term is subjective, but it's subjective to you, right? And so you can rate your cup of coffee, and eventually you can dial in all the different variables, and you can adjust these different variables and come up with your perfect cup of coffee. So for our equipment here, we've got a bag of Sumatra coffee beans from Starbucks. We've got our coffee grinder. I always believe in grinding your coffee right before you brew it, like a couple minutes, not like at the store or buy it ground. So here we've got our magnetic stir plate, and this is our Erlenmeyer coffee mug. To go with the stir plate, we've got a little magnet here, and when we turn it on, it's going to create a little vortex in our stir plate. And this is our magic wand that you reach inside and you grab the magnet out with. This is the coffee scoop that came with our coffee brewer, and today we're going to use this Syphon coffee brewer from Hario, the Hario TCA, TCA 5, and this is a really, really awesome concept, the Syphon brewer. And the way that this works here, take the top off. The way that this works is really amazing. You put hot water here in this round bottom flask that's attached to the handle here. So you put your hot water in here, and it doesn't have to be hot. It just takes a lot longer if it's not hot. So you take your hot water and you put it in here, or your cold water and put it in here, and then you take this guy, and it's got a little filter, and you pull down on this hook, and and it hooks in place here. This spring is what holds that filter in place, and you want it to be pretty much centered. And then this sits down here like this. When your water starts boiling, you put the piece together, like you create that seal, and the heat from your burner here will push the coffee up into the top where it brews. You time that brewing time. That's this is one of your variables, and then you let it brew, and then you pull the heater away. And when you do pull the heater away, the science of this is that this glass globe here starts to cool, and when it cools, it creates a vacuum, and this sucks all the coffee down back through that tube, and now your coffee's here in your round bottom flask attached to your handle. You just pop the top off, and the cap that it comes with it sits in that. You just pop this off like this, kind of like a two-handed thing, and then you just set the top in like that. So pretty excellent design. And this was like $75 on Amazon. You could get a knockoff one, but the reviews were really great on this one, so I got the Hario one. And this is kind of a Japanese style, and they also make a European style where it's kind of a balancing act, and there's a lot more metal. It's not as much glass. So here we just have a standard whistling teapot. Here I have my thermometer, and I'm just using this round bottom flask as a thermometer holder here. And I've got a couple graduated flasks here that we can use for our measuring. I've got a kitchen timer, and I've got a scale here that we can use to measure our coffee beans and our coffee grinds, and that way we can get a very precise number, and that's one of the variables that we can change to create that perfect cup of coffee. So when I was thinking about creating the perfect cup of coffee through science and through chemistry, I was thinking about taking some notes on the different variables involved. And so I've kind of come up with a list here of different things that we could write down, different things that could be variables. And when we do our tasting notes, we'll write, best cup of coffee ever. We can try and try and recreate this, or if it's not the best cup of coffee, we can think, you know, what could be better. So I've put our coffee in our grinder. I'm using my iPhone to record this video, so I'll go ahead and use my Apple Watch, and we'll use the stopwatch on the Apple Watch. And I'll just push the button down and keep track of that. And we'll stop it at 15 seconds. So here in our grind time, we'll write 15 seconds. All right. And then next we'll put into a coffee filter here, just for cleanliness sake. We'll put our coffee in here, and we'll use this to measure it on our scale. And I think that's just the right amount there. So let's put this on our scale. So we'll turn this guy on. Zero it out. And so we have 14.1 grams. So the weight of our grind is 14.1 grams. So you can, we can prep our Syphon Brewer by putting our coffee grounds in here. There we go. And we could also like prep any cream and sugar, stuff like that. And this is that could be another variable. So for the cream and sugar, I think I would like to have like 3 scoops of sugar in a big cup of coffee. And I guess it's kind of sacrilegious putting cream and sugar in my coffee, but that's what I do. And I think that would be a good amount there. And those are also things that you could record. And again, if you're trying to make that perfect cup of coffee, you could really get it down to quite a science. So we can think about our best cup of coffee as a science project, as a chemistry project, but we could also think of it as an alchemy project. And so you could think about with our coffee brewer, we could think about as above, so below. We could think about the below affecting the above, and also too with the burner, with below and above, and how these things, you know, react with each other. The hot water comes up, is infused with the coffee, and then comes back down in the same way like distillation, where the steam is coming up in a distillation apparatus, and that's said in alchemy, that's said to be harvesting these planetary energies, and the ancient alchemists believed in planetary hours and planetary days, so that, you know, like Sunday was ruled by the sun and had these archetypal energies going on, and so if you were thinking about this from an alchemist point of view, you might write down the planetary association, not just for the day but the planetary hours, and you could think of the 7 steps of the alchemical process, like step 1 is calcination, so that would be fire, so that would be our heating element here, and that would be our you know, burner here on our Syphon Brewer, right? And you could think about dissolution, or working with water, and so you could think about our, you know, our brewing and our heating up our water here. Separation, or working with air. You could think about like our coffee grinder, where we're grinding something up, you know, we're doing that separation. Conjunction, you could think of like working with earth. You could think of that like as putting together, you know, so you could think of that. And then fermentation and distillation, you could think of those steps like as in the brewing of your coffee, you know, and the amount of time that it takes, you know. And you know, the seventh step is coagulation, and you could think of that as taking all these things, all these perfect variables, and putting them together, and that would be the seventh stage of alchemy. The final stage, that'd be working with sulfic salt, and you're coagulating. You're taking these different perfect elements and putting them together. So that would be from a alchemical point of view. And Victor Schauberger has some amazing things where he talks about water and its properties, and there's a lot of really interesting videos on YouTube of people saying like nice things to water and mean things to water, and then looking at these two different waters underneath a microscope and seeing that there's just an amazing difference. So there's a whole study of water and the way that you would treat water. So again, from an alchemical perspective, you might subject your water to a certain vibration, and that could be music, or that could be a singing bowl. It could be anything. But from an alchemical perspective, to make that perfect cup of coffee, that could definitely be a variable. Okay, so we got our hot water preheated, and then we can go ahead and start pouring our water into our siphon brewer. And in this case, I want to fill it to right where the 5 is, because I'm trying to keep that a constant measurement so that my water ratio stays the same. Right to that 5 mark. Perfect. And it's important when you use one of these siphon brewers that you kind of wipe off the glass here before you light your burner, because you don't want any moisture to be there and cause the glass to crack. So we'll just light our wick here. There we go. And then we'll put our burner underneath our siphon brewer. And you want that to be right in the middle there. And then we can set this guy here until we're ready to make that seal. Also, we can preheat our coffee cup by pouring some hot water in there, and that'll get that glass nice and hot. Alright, there we go. And it usually takes about 2 minutes to get the water to the boiling point where it's ready to travel up into the top of the tube and brew the coffee. So it's about 2 minutes later, 2.5 minutes later, and our siphon brewer is ready to start brewing. And we want our brewing time to be about 60 seconds. So we'll use our stopwatch here, and once the water starts going in, then we'll go ahead and start our stopwatch, and we're aiming for a 60-second brew. That's what they recommend. So to make this seal, you don't want to make the seal too tight, because you have to get it off later, as long as it seals. And you can see that the water's making it in there now, so we'll go ahead and start our timer now, and we want to let the coffee brew for 1 minute. You can kind of stir the coffee around, and during this stage, typically you leave the burner on down below, and we'll let it keep brewing. And after it's brewed for that 1 minute, then we'll remove the heat. We'll remove that burner, and that's when that's when there'll be a vacuum created in here, and in doing so, okay, we're good. And in taking away the heat here will cause this to start cooling down, this lower portion, and when this glass globe starts to cool down, then the coffee will create a vacuum, and it's going to pull this coffee down through our coffee filter. So you can see that it's starting to pull the gravity, and the vacuum is pulling the coffee down through the brewer now, and it's looking like a really good color. It has had kind of a rowdy brew going on there, and you want to give it one last stir as it goes down. For a perfect extraction with a Syphon Brewer, you would want to see like a mound, like a perfectly round mound in the center of it. So we'll see how we did. It's not typical that it boils so much, so I think maybe my burner was a little bit high. So I've had some extractions that didn't have that nice round top to them, and that might be another variable, you know, as to whether you did get that perfect brew. But when you're going for that perfect brew with a Syphon Brewer, that's one thing you want to see is that lump. And so, and when as it pulls the coffee through at the very end, it'll start pulling some air through, so you'll see some bubbles. And when the bubbles are done, then you can grab a hold of the handle here. You want to pull this guy loose, and that's why you don't want to seal it too hard, so you can get it off there nice and easy. You don't have to fight with it. So now we've got our brewed coffee, and we'll go ahead and pour this into our coffee cup, and we'll put our coffee cup on our stir plate just for fun, and we'll put in our cream and sugar with the magnetic stir plate. All right, so we've got our coffee filled up here right to our 400 milliliter line, and we'll take our little magnet and we'll drop this guy in here, and then we'll turn on our stir plate. And you can see that makes a really neat funnel. So we can turn that down a little bit. We can pour in our cream here. Put in our sugar. Alright, so I got that just a little bit less than half. And I'm sure that's more than enough stirring. We can use our little magic wand here, grab our magnet, and we'll set this guy on our plate. So that was an excellent cup of coffee. I think I did really well. I think I would maybe add a little bit more grounds next time, and I think that I might adjust the wick on the burner here so that the next time I make a cup of coffee, it doesn't boil up here so much. You know, lower the heat on this guy a little bit. But overall, that was an amazing cup of coffee. And so I've got my notes here, and I know what I think I need to adjust. And so then I'm going to make those adjustments, and I'll take some more notes, and eventually I'm going to get to that perfect cup of coffee. You know, use science and use chemistry, and you even use alchemy to create that perfect cup of coffee. And so I just wanted to thank you for taking the time to check out my video. If you want to share my video with your friends on a blog, that'd be awesome, or on your social media, or on a forum, that'd be really great. Help me get my YouTube channel going, would be awesome. So if you want to like, share, and subscribe, that'd be awesome. And I just wanted to take the time to thank you again for checking out my video. Peace profound, and L.V.X.